Hi everyone, this is a short tutorial on side crow pose or parsva kakasana, sometimes called parsva bakasana. This is one of the more common arm balances popping up in yoga classes, and it's based on a twisting action. So the main preparation for the pose is to get into deeper and deeper twists. Let's start with the twists lying on our back. And you can have the arms out at shoulder height. Press the feet down, shift the hips to one side, and then take the knees to the other side, stacking the knees on top of each other. See if you can slide the top knee a little bit more in the direction of the bottom knee so that they're stacking up as much as possible. And then you can just take a few breaths here, softening the back shoulder towards the ground. And take this twist on both sides. So to come into the other side, come to center, shift the hips over to the opposite side, taking the knees over, away from where you shifted the hips, and then aiming to stack the knees a little bit more on top of each other. They don't have to stack exactly, but the more you stack them, the more you deepen the twist, which is what you're interested in here. And then as you come out, bring the feet to center, bring the hips to center, interlace your hands behind your head, take an inhale, and with the exhale, take the knees into the chest and lift the upper back and the head off the floor. Breathe in, and then take one arm to the outside of the opposite thigh and stay here, and you're reaching across as much as you can. So you're activating your abdominal muscles, which is also part of what you need in the eventual arm balance that we're working towards. So reaching across, lifting the torso away from the ground, reaching the arm a little bit further, and then come back with an inhale and try the other side with the exhale. Taking a few breaths here, reaching as far across as you can. Try and keep both shoulders off the ground, lifting the torso, and then come back to center. Extend your legs forward, reach your fingers forward, and just hover here. Press the navel down towards the lower back and press the lower back down towards the floor. Again, this is just to get even more into the abdominal muscles, activating those as we need them for later. And then bring the knees into the chest, eventually release the head down, and you can make your way up to sit, and then come to an all fours position. And we'll take a little warm up for the wrists. So first of all, you can just circle the wrists one after the other in both directions, and then place your fingers out to the side and turn your fingers back towards the knees as much as is comfortable for you, and either stay here or start to shift the hips back a little bit and just play with a little deeper stretch to the wrists here. Try and keep the heel of the hand on the floor. If that's not possible, stay further forward with the shoulders. You could also explore bending the elbows just a touch, just a little bit of softness here, and then carefully releasing the fingers off the ground, shaking out your wrists, and then come to a tiptoe position. So fingertips are on the floor, tucking the toes under, lifting the knees off the ground. Lift high onto your tiptoes and just rock forwards and backwards a few times just to see how that feels. And then eventually release your heels down and come into a chair pose. So keep the knees really bent, soles of the feet are flat on the floor, and the arms reach up. And then from here, we're going to come into a side chair. Take one arm to the outside of the opposite leg. This is essentially the same that we just did, lying on the floor. And you can press the free hand into the thigh to help you cross over more deeply. So this crossing over deeply is really the essence, what helps you to get into the balance eventually. You can press your palms together, pressing the top arm down into the bottom hand to free the top shoulder to guide the body into a deeper twist. And then take an inhale and come back to center, and then take it on into the other side. Crossing over the elbow to the outside of the thigh, use your free hand to press against the thigh to help you tuck the elbow over even more, and then eventually placing the palms on top of each other, keeping your hips square, the whole lower body is symmetrical, and as the top hand presses down, the top shoulder lifts and rotates back somewhat to deepen the twisting action. And then with an inhale, come out, reaching the arms, bring the fingers down, bring the knees to the floor, and come to a kneeling position. And then we take another twisting action here, which again, it becomes more and more similar to the actual pose. So take one elbow to the outside of the opposite thigh and try and slide the elbow down the thigh as much as you can. So for some people, the elbow will hover there. For some people, the elbow will even come close to the floor. You could make a soft fist with the bottom hand and place the top hand on top. This is quite a nice wrist-friendly way of placing the hands. Then press the top hand down to twist the torso around and to free the top shoulder back in space. And then come out and swap sides. So again, the elbow may not come to the floor, that's fine, but you're trying to slide the elbow down the leg as far as you can, and this is where the difficulty lies, to access the pose. And then the top hand presses down into the bottom hand, and you're having your forearms in a sort of straight line, and the top shoulder rolls down the back. And then release. So these are a few preparations that you can repeat many times and that will help you to eventually find the actual pose. And then to take it further, you could start from a twisted chair pose, just like we did before, pressing across, get the elbow as far across as you can, and then squatting lower, placing your hands on the floor. And all 10 fingers face in one direction, and then swivel the toes so that they also face in the same direction. And it's a deep twist. And then from here, really tucking that elbow into the thigh, lift your hips, lean forward, look forward, lift one foot or lift both feet. Press your legs together, claw your fingertips into the floor, and then come down. And for the other side, taking the elbow across to the outside of the thigh. Already here, slide as far across as you can, placing the hands down. Swivel the toes so they point in the same direction as the fingers. Lift the hips, look forward. You're leaning towards the free arm somewhat. And if you're finding your balance, maybe just one foot lifts or maybe both, then squeeze the legs together. And then eventually come down. Now, one of the ways you can help yourself with this pose here, and this works much better for a few people, and particularly as you're learning this, is to recruit both arms to support the body. So as you're preparing for the twist, still sliding the elbow down as far as you can, but then using the other elbow to support the far end of the leg, the hip end of the leg, so that both elbows are tucking into the body, the elbows are bent, and then you're leaning forward, and it's just a matter of physics, like a seesaw action, to come forward. And you'll be a little bit closer to the ground so that if you need to even get the head all the way down, maybe there is some padding there to receive the head if need be. So bringing both elbows into the same leg, one at the mid-thigh, one at the hip, and maybe the head even comes down, and that can help you getting the feet off the ground. So you can explore that. And another thing that is often a hindrance in these arm balances is that they feel really strong on the wrists. So you could roll up a bit of mat, the front edge of the mat, or you can take a blanket support so that the heel of the hand is a little bit elevated in comparison to the fingers, so that the angle between the hand and the forearm is reduced somewhat. And then it's essentially the same positioning. You want the blanket to be as firm as possible, and you're supporting yourself like this. And again, you could try this on both sides. And then to have a little play with these postures, you could add on and sort of from the original arm balance position, find different other arm balances to play with. So one way of playing is to do a forearm version of this pose where you have one hand flat on the floor, but then on the other side, the forearm comes down. And this also works well if you maybe have a wrist weakness on that side, just as an additional support. It can also feel more stable. Lifting one foot, leaning towards the forearm, lifting the other foot. And the key here is to keep the shoulders away from the floor, particularly on that forearm side, really keeping the forearm pressing down into the ground to keep the shoulder lifted. And maybe you're only doing this on one side if there is an injury, but maybe you just want to explore the pose. I really quite like this variation. The forearm on the floor, the elbow is in line with the wrist. You're leaning towards the forearm, and the forearm can press down into the floor more firmly than just the hand. And then coming down. Another variation would be to come back to this version where both elbows are supporting the leg, and then bring the head all the way to the floor and extend one leg up. And this is sometimes called fallen angel. So starting off, elbows supporting the leg, lifting the feet, and then bringing the side of the head down. Keep pressing down through the hands. Lift the top leg up towards the ceiling. Trying the other side. It's nice if the side of the head lands on the mat. Just have a little bit of support there. And then another way, the last way of playing, of modifying here, is to take it into Kundanyasana, where the legs are straightening. And they can either straighten on top of each other in the same direction, or they can split at 90 degrees and move in opposite directions. So it looks like this. Setting up in the same way, and if you can, keeping the free elbow free rather than placing the hip on that elbow, lifting up, straightening the legs out to the side, maybe taking the top leg back behind you, pressing the hands down, lifting through the top leg, and then coming down. And to try this on the second side, getting the elbow way across, tucking right in there. Both elbows, of course, always bend, lifting the feet. Extend the legs to the side. This is Dvipada Kundanyasana. Or take the top leg up behind you, lifting the top leg. You can take your gaze towards the bottom foot. And then eventually come down. And when you're done with your little exploration, don't forget to do some shoulder stretching and some wrist stretching. So for a wrist stretch, you could slide the backs of the hands along the sides of the rib cage towards the armpits, and then move the elbows back and down slightly. You could do a little bit of a sort of flapping action, like flapping your wings. And then interlace your hands behind the body, lift the arms away from the body. And you could do this a couple of times, changing the interlace of fingers, lifting back up again. and release. And remember, the main thing is to repeat. Start with the preparatory poses, repeat them a lot, and then everything will become a lot more familiar to the body. The body will remember, and the posture will be there. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy exploring.